While my 8-year-old was in the hospital fighting for her life, my parents sold our belongings and gave our room to my sister. "You were late with the payment," they said casually. I didn't cry. I took action. 3 months later, they saw us and went completely pale. We got released on a Tuesday afternoon, which felt wrong on principle. Tuesday is for errands and emails and forgetting what day it is, not for walking out of a hospital with your kid and trying to pretend your hands aren't still shaking. Chloe stood at the automatic doors with her rabbit tucked under one arm and her other hand wrapped around my fingers like a seatbelt. She looked better than she had. She also looked like someone who'd learned too early that grown-ups can say, "It's okay," while attaching tubes to you. "We're going home now?" she asked, as if I might change my mind and swing back toward the elevators. "We're going home," I said. I kept my voice light, lighter than I felt, because she was watching me the way kids do after something scary, like my face was the weather report. In the car, she stared out the window and then back at me, checking. "My bed is still there, right?" "Yeah," I said. "Your bed is still there." We shared a bedroom at my parents' house, but Chloe had her own little bed and her moon projector, and a pile of books she insisted were for emergencies. I had my narrow bed on the other side of the room, and the kind of drawer space you get when you are a temporary person in someone else's permanent life. She sighed and leaned her head back. "I want my blanket." "I know," I said, and meant it. Not just the blanket, the whole idea of familiar things. When we parked, I unbuckled Chloe slowly. She didn't complain. She just held still and let me help her out. I hate that, how calm kids get when they've had too much. Like their bodies decide being compliant is safer than being a kid. "Rabbit," she reminded me. "I've got him," I said. I had the rabbit, the pharmacy bag, the folder, and my keys. That felt like enough to carry for one person. The front door opened before I could get the key in the lock. My mom was there with a smile that looked practiced, but warm enough to pass if you weren't inspecting it under a microscope. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, eyes going straight to Chloe. "Look at you." My dad hovered behind her, one hand on the door frame like he was waiting for instructions. My sister Megan stood in the hallway. Her son Aiden was beside her, quiet and watchful. For a split second, my brain did the normal thing. They knew we were coming. They're here. They're being decent. Chloe's face brightened in that careful way she'd developed lately, like happiness was something you tried on first to see if it hurt. "Hi," she said. "Hi, honey," my mom said. She touched the top of Chloe's head lightly, like Chloe was made of glass. "Come inside. It's cold." Chloe leaned toward the stairs immediately, rabbit pinned to her ribs. "Can we go to my room now?" "Yeah," I said, relieved to have something simple. "Let's get you settled. Blanket first." I shifted the pharmacy bag higher on my arm and stepped forward. My mom's hand landed on my elbow. Not a grab. A pause. Like a polite person stopping you from stepping into traffic. "Jenna," she said, still smiling, "before you go up, do you have somewhere to sleep tonight?" It took my brain a full second to process the sentence. "What?" I said. "Tonight," she repeated gently, like I was the one being confusing. "Where are you staying tonight?" Chloe's fingers tightened around the rabbit's ear. She looked between my face and my mom's. "We live here," I said. The words came out flat, because that's what facts sound like. My mom nodded as if we agreed. "Right, and about that." There it was, the little tilt in her tone, the "you're not going to like this," wrapped in politeness. My stomach tightened. "About what?" My mom exhaled softly. "Megan's been using your room." I stared at her. "My room." "The room you were using," she corrected immediately, like she could edit reality with vocabulary. Chloe's head lifted. "My bed is in there. Megan's eyes flicked away. Aiden suddenly became fascinated by the stitching on his own sleeve. My dad cleared his throat. "Jenna, no," I said, quiet but sharp. "Explain it." My mom's smile stayed. It didn't crack. It just held. "You weren't here for 2 weeks." "I was in the hospital." "Yes," she said quickly, like she was agreeing with me. "And during that time, you weren't using the room." The sentence felt insane in my mouth, like saying it made me complicit in it. "And you didn't pay your monthly contribution," she added, still soft. There it was. The reason. The hinge. "I told you I'd pay later," I said. "I was focused on Chloe." "I understand," my mom said, and the way she said it made my skin crawl because it sounded like something she'd say to a cashier about a coupon that expired. "But we couldn't keep things empty." Chloe's voice was small. "We didn't leave. I was sick." I tightened my arm around her without thinking. Mother bear, automatic. "What did you do with our stuff?" I asked. My mom blinked like she hadn't expected me to go there so fast. "Most of it is boxed." "Boxed where?" "In the garage," my dad said, like he was offering helpful directions. "Most?" I repeated, because that word was sitting in my throat like a stone. My mom's smile shifted. Barely. "We had to sell some of it." Chloe blinked hard. "Sell my stuff?" "It wasn't being used," my mom said casually, like that was a normal thing to say to a child holding a hospital discharge folder's worth of trauma. My mouth went dry. "What did you sell?" my dad answered, like he'd rehearsed it. "The game console, the tablet, the headphones." Chloe went very still. Not tears, not anger. Just blank shock, like her brain stepped back to protect her. "My headphones?" she whispered. Megan jumped in, voice quick and bright, trying to plaster over the moment. "Jenna, it wasn't like we wanted to. Money was tight and Aiden had his deposit due." "Aiden's deposit," I repeated. Megan nodded, relieved to have a justification. "For his competition. Non-refundable. We needed it by Friday." I stared at her, then at my mom. "So, while Chloe was in the hospital, you sold her things to pay for Aiden." My mom's smile widened a fraction, like she was offended by my wording. "You missed your contribution." Chloe's hand slid into mine, tight enough to hurt. "Show me the boxes," I said. We walked to the garage. The garage smelled like dust and cold concrete. Stacks of boxes lined one wall. Some had my kid's name on them in thick marker. Chloe, clothes, Chloe, books, written in my mom's handwriting. Chloe reached out and touched the letters with 2 fingers. "That's my name." "I know," I said. Behind us, my mom followed like this was a reasonable tour. "We kept the important things." "Like what?" I said before I could stop myself. "The stuff that doesn't have a resale value?" My dad's jaw tightened. My mom's smile flickered. Then it came back, brighter, as if she'd just remembered she was supposed to look kind. "Megan needed help," she said. I turned my head slowly. "Megan lived somewhere else." Megan lifted her chin. "Rent is expensive." "So is a hospital," I said. My mom stepped in smoothly, like she always did when things started getting uncomfortable. "Jenna," she said, "there's no reason to turn this into a confrontation." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't move. "So," I said, keeping my eyes on her because Chloe was right there. "While Chloe and I were in the hospital for 2 weeks, you moved Megan and her son into our room." My mom made a small, precise motion with her hand. "No," she said. "Not exactly." I paused. "We moved Megan into your room," she continued calmly. "Aiden is in the guest room." There was a beat where my brain tried to understand why that distinction mattered. "The guest room," I repeated. "Yes," she said, relieved, like she'd just corrected a minor detail that had been bothering her. Chloe frowned. "We weren't allowed to use that room." "No," I said quietly. "We weren't." I let that sit for a second, then set it back the way it actually was. "So, you gave my room to Megan, you gave the guest room to Aiden, you sold Chloe's things, and you packed the rest into boxes." My mom's shoulders relaxed, just a little, like she was glad we'd finally gotten the facts straight. "That's right," she said. She tilted her head, her voice softening again, like this was the part meant to fix things. "And that's why I asked if you have somewhere to sleep tonight." I waited. "If you don't," she continued, "you can stay for a couple of nights. We'll set up the sofa. It doesn't have to be a big deal." A couple of nights. Like this was a scheduling issue. Like we'd misplaced a hotel reservation. Chloe's hand slid into mine. "Mom," she whispered, "where do we sleep?" I looked at my parents, at my sister, at the boxes stacked in the garage with my daughter's name written on them in my mother's handwriting, on the sofa. I nodded once. Not agreement, just acknowledgement. "Okay," I said. My mom smiled, relieved, like she'd done something kind. "See?" she said. "We're being flexible." I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't say anything else. I took Chloe's jacket from the hook and helped her into it. She didn't ask questions. She just let me zip it up. My dad frowned. "Jenna, where are you going?" "Out," I said. "For how long?" my mom asked. I paused, hand on the door. "I don't know," I said. And that was the truth. Outside, the air felt sharper than before. Chloe climbed into the passenger seat slowly, carefully, like she was afraid of doing something wrong. I started the car. The engine sounded too loud in the quiet street. Chloe buckled herself in and looked at me. "We're not staying?" I shook my head. "No!" She nodded once, absorbing it, then leaned back against the seat. "Okay," she said. "Can we drive for a little bit?" "Yeah," I said. "We can drive." I pulled away from the curb. In the rearview mirror, my parents' house looked exactly the same as it always had. I didn't know where we were going. I just knew we weren't going back. Megan is 2 years older than me, and in my family that somehow meant she mattered more. Not in a dramatic soap opera way. My parents would swear up and down they treat their kids the same. They just didn't. It showed in the decisions that were always framed as practical. The small choices that add up until you stop calling them choices and start calling them a pattern. Megan got comfort as a default. I got expectations. Megan got, "Oh, honey, come here." I got, "You're strong, you'll figure it out." Which sounds like a compliment until you realize it's actually a way of stepping back without feeling guilty. When Megan had Aiden, the favoritism didn't end. It upgraded. Aiden became the grandchild my parents planned around. Not because he was a prodigy or because they were strict sports people. The opposite. It was always pitched as fun. Aiden's big thing wasn't about training until your knees give out. It was about getting to go somewhere cool, like the travel baseball weekends. If you've never dealt with travel baseball, it's basically this: a bunch of kids in matching shirts, parents hauling folding chairs, and adults pretending they're not just paying for a mini vacation with a side of baseball. Aiden's team had one coming up in a beach town, not a serious tournament, not a career move. A beach town. The kind with a boardwalk, overpriced ice cream, and kids running around in sandals still wearing their jerseys because they think it makes them look important. Aiden wouldn't stop talking about it. The ocean, the hotel pool, the team dinner, the idea of waking up somewhere that isn't home and getting to say, "We're here for baseball," Like that explained everything. My parents ate it up. They called it an opportunity, but what they meant was, we want him to have a good time. Chloe didn't get that kind of energy. Chloe got labeled easy, which is a word adults use when they don't want to admit a child has learned to shrink. Both Megan and I are divorced, and that's where the difference in treatment got impossible to ignore. When Megan's marriage ended, my parents rallied like it was their shared mission. My mom blamed Megan's ex immediately. My dad did the grim headshake and the "he never deserved you" line. Megan could do nothing wrong because she was going through it. When my marriage ended, years earlier, when Chloe was smaller and my life was a lot less stable, my parents didn't rally. They assessed. They offered a room, but not comfort. Living with them wasn't free. It wasn't even soft. There was a monthly contribution, the kind they insisted was fair, plus the unspoken expectation that I'd make myself useful. Extra errands, extra chores, extra "can you just" tasks that weren't requests, because in that house, requests were for Megan. I paid to live there, and then I paid again in labor. I did it because I had to. Because rent doesn't care that you're exhausted and single-parent math doesn't magically stretch. What made it sting wasn't paying. It was watching money become optional when it was for Megan. My parents would hand her cash for Aiden's stuff. They'd cover little extras without discussion: new cleats, a team hoodie, the deposit that had to be paid by Friday. Everything was urgent when it was for him. Everything was flexible when it was for her. But when it was me, it was always rules, always deadlines, always "we can't." Before Megan's divorce, before Aiden's beach weekend baseball dreams, before my parents started treating me like a tenant with chores attached, there was one other adult in that house, my Grandma Helen, my mom's mom. When I was little, 6 maybe, she was just there. Not in the background, in the room. In the way that matters when you're a kid and you don't know you're keeping score yet. I remember one night I couldn't sleep because Megan was crying in her room again. Not hurt crying, performance crying. The kind that made my mom rush in like the house was on fire. I was standing in the hallway in my socks, too small to do anything except listen. My grandma found me there. She didn't tell me to go back to bed. She didn't say, "Stop lurking." She led me into the kitchen, set a glass of water on the table like it was a serious appointment, and slid a cookie toward me like she was bribing a tiny witness. "Your sister's loud," she said quietly. I snorted. I couldn't help it. It slipped out. She didn't scold me for that either. She just tilted her head and said, "You're allowed to have feelings, you know." No one had ever said that to me like it was a fact. That's what I remember most. Not some grand gesture, not a big speech. Just an adult making room for me in a house where attention was always already spent. And then she disappeared from my life so cleanly it felt like someone erased her. Her chair stopped being at the table. Her mug stopped being in the cabinet. I asked where she went, and my mom answered without looking up from whatever she was doing, like it was a question about the weather. She left. That was the first version. After that, the versions multiplied. She was difficult. She was dramatic. She always wanted something. She couldn't be trusted. Sometimes my mom implied money. Sometimes she implied betrayal. The details changed, but the rule didn't. Don't ask, don't miss her. Don't bring her up. So I didn't. When you're 6, you don't argue with the person who feeds you. You just learn what topics cost too much. You swallow the memory and tell yourself you must have misunderstood what you felt back then. I knew she was alive somewhere about an hour away. That was all. A fact on the edge of the family map. A person I'd been trained to treat like a warning label. I didn't know where else to go. That was the whole problem. Not where to stay, not what to do next. Just the absence of an address that didn't come with conditions. Chloe sat in the passenger seat, Rabbit tucked under her arm, staring straight ahead like if she didn't look at me, I wouldn't have to explain anything yet. "Are we staying somewhere?" she asked. "Yes," I said. She waited. "I'm just figuring out where," I added. She nodded once. Didn't ask again. That's when I knew she understood more than I wanted her to. I drove for a few minutes with no destination, just movement. Then I pulled into a parking lot and did the one thing my mother had trained me not to do. I called my grandma Helen. I still had her number. I didn't know why I'd kept it. Habit, maybe. Or the part of my brain that refuses to throw away exits. It rang twice. "Hello?" Her voice was calm, not suspicious, not guarded. "It's Jenna," I said. "Your granddaughter." A pause. Then, "Jenna." Just my name. Nothing else. No accusation. No why now. "We need somewhere to stay," I said. I didn't soften it. I didn't dress it up. "Where are you?" she asked. I told her. "Come here," she said. "I'll be home." That was it. I hung up and sat there for a second with my hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. Chloe looked at me. "Was that your grandma?" "Yes," I said. "She's nice?" "I remember her being," I said. "That's all I know." We drove about an hour. Chloe dozed in short stretches, waking whenever we slowed down, like her body still didn't trust transitions. When we arrived, the building was small and quiet. No drama, no luxury. Just there. My grandma Helen opened the door before I knocked. She looked older than I remembered and exactly the same in the ways that mattered. Her eyes went straight to Chloe. "Oh," she said softly. "Come in." No questions. No hesitation. She stepped aside and let us enter like it was obvious we belonged there. Chloe hovered near me. My grandma didn't reach for her. She didn't crowd her. She just said, "Couch is fine," and set a blanket down like she'd already decided Chloe was staying. Water appeared. Then silence. Chloe curled up under the blanket without being told. Rabbit under her chin. She didn't say thank you. She didn't need to. My grandma sat across from me. "What happened?" she said. Not why. Not what did you do. Just what happened. I told her the short version. Hospital. Discharge. Came home. Room gone. Things boxed. Some sold. Her jaw tightened. "They sold her things," she said. "Yes." "For what?" I hesitated for half a second, then said it. "A deposit for Aiden. Travel baseball. Beach weekend." That did it. My grandma let out a short breath through her nose. Not a laugh. Not quite anger. Recognition. "Your mother," she said. Chloe shifted slightly. "They sold my headphones." My grandma's face softened instantly. "I'm sorry, sweetheart." Chloe nodded like she didn't trust herself to speak. My grandma turned back to me. "She told you I left?" "Yes." "Did she tell you why?" "Different reasons," I said. "Depending on the day." My grandma nodded. "I lived with you when you were little. I worked. I helped. Then I hurt my back. Couldn't do what I used to. Couldn't be useful anymore." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't dramatize it. "When I stopped being useful," she said, "your mother decided I was a problem." That explanation fit everything too cleanly to argue with. She sat there for a moment, hands folded, looking past me at Chloe curled under the blanket like she was trying to take up as little space as possible. "I wish I could fix this the easy way," she said finally. "I wish I could hand you cash and tell you to sleep." I didn't answer, because there was nothing to say to that without turning it into a performance. My grandma exhaled and stood up. I don't have money like that, she said over her shoulder, almost annoyed with herself. Not sitting around, not solve your life in one day money. She disappeared into her bedroom and came back with a worn cardboard box, the kind that had been opened and closed too many times and still refused to die. My husband kept some old certificates, she said, setting it down carefully. I never dealt with them. Most of it is probably worthless, but I don't know. Maybe there's something in here that helps, even if it's just enough to get you stable for a month. She glanced at Chloe, then back at me, like she was offering this with both hands and no pride left in it. I thanked her, because it was the only thing I could do without cracking. That night, after Chloe finally fell asleep, Rabbit tucked under her chin, breathing even again, I sat at the small table with the box in front of me and my phone beside it. I opened the box and immediately understood one thing. I had no idea what I was looking at. They weren't checks. They weren't cash. Just old paper with company names on them. Some of them sounded familiar. Most of them didn't. So I started looking them up. One by one. Most went nowhere. Companies that didn't exist anymore. Names that led to dead pages or collector forums. A few were technically worth something, but nothing that would change anything. Enough to buy groceries, maybe. Enough to feel disappointed. Then I pulled out one that said, Apple Computer Inc. I stopped. Not because I know finance, because I know what Apple is. I checked the paper again, just to make sure I wasn't misreading it. There was a note attached, faded but clear. $400. I looked it up, expecting maybe a few thousand if I was lucky. Enough for a deposit somewhere cheap. Enough to breathe for a month. That wasn't what came up. What came up was a very simple explanation. Shares bought decades ago don't stay the same. Over the years, they multiply. I did the math. If he bought about $400 worth back then, that was 18 shares. Those 18 shares had turned into 4,032 shares. I pulled up the current price. I typed it in. I stared at the number on my screen until my eyes stopped trying to reject it. $1,090,051. I sat there for a long second, phone in my hand, heart pounding hard enough to make me feel sick. Then I stood up quietly and walked to my grandma's door. I knocked once. She opened it immediately. "What is it?" she asked. I didn't say anything. I just held out my phone. She leaned forward, squinted, then straightened slowly. "Oh," she said. Not excited, not happy, just stunned. Because some numbers don't feel like money right away. They feel like a way out. 3 months later, I was standing in a house that belonged to us. I still had trouble saying that sentence without mentally adding "for now" at the end. The weeks after that night blurred together in a way that didn't feel dramatic so much as administrative. Phone calls, meetings, forms, a lot of waiting while people confirmed, reconfirmed, and then confirmed again that yes, the numbers were real, and yes, everything checked out. I didn't feel lucky. I felt suspicious. Every step came with this underlying sense that someone was about to tap me on the shoulder and say, "Sorry, this was a misunderstanding," but no one did. We didn't sell everything. We didn't need to. My grandma was firm about that. We sold a small part, just enough for a down payment, and left the rest alone. The idea was stability, not spectacle. The house wasn't enormous. It wasn't flashy, but it was solid, quiet. The kind of place where you could close the door and not feel like you were borrowing oxygen. Chloe picked her room first. She chose it carefully, like she was afraid someone might change their mind if she moved too fast. When she finally put the rabbit on the bed and looked up at me, she smiled. A real one, not the careful version she'd been using since the hospital. "This one," she said. Helen moved in with us without ceremony. Ground floor bedroom, fewer stairs, practical choices that didn't need to be justified. It felt natural in a way I didn't question. What did surprise me was how long it took for the disbelief to wear off. Even after the boxes were unpacked, even after Chloe started sleeping through the night again, I'd still catch myself standing in the hallway, half expecting someone to tell us we had to leave. The only contact I had with my parents during those 3 months was transactional. One trip back to their house, one silent unloading of boxes from the garage. No conversations, no apologies, no questions about Chloe, just logistics. After that, there was nothing. And for a while, I thought that might be the end of it. I wish it was. I was in the driveway watching Chloe draw chalk shapes on the pavement when I saw my parents walking down the street. I shouldn't have been surprised. We'd stayed in the same school zone so Chloe wouldn't have to change schools. Same grocery store, same sidewalks, same everything. It was always going to happen eventually. I just didn't expect that day. At first, they didn't see me. They were talking, walking slowly, like people killing time. Then my mom glanced up. She slowed. My dad took another step before realizing she wasn't beside him anymore. They both looked at the house. Not at me. At the house. I stayed where I was. Chloe kept drawing, crouched low, completely absorbed. My mom crossed the street first. "Jenna?" she said, uncertain now. "What are you doing here?" "Hi," I said. My dad frowned slightly. "Are you visiting?" The question landed exactly where it should have. "No," I said. My mom's eyes flicked back to the house. "So you're renting?" I shook my head. There was a beat where neither of them spoke. Chloe looked up then. "This is our house," she said, casual, like she was stating the weather. My mom's face tightened. "Your house?" My dad turned fully toward me. "You live here?" "Yes." That was the moment it hit. Not dramatically, not with shouting, just a visible recalculation they couldn't hide. My mom laughed once, too fast. "Since when?" "Since we moved in," I said. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "But how?" I didn't answer. Chloe tugged my sleeve. "Can I go inside? My hands are messy." "Yes," I said. "Wash them." She ran past me, chalk dust trailing behind her. My mom watched her go, then looked back at me. "Jenna, what's going on?" That's when my grandma stepped into the doorway behind me. She didn't announce herself. She just stood there. My mom froze. "Oh." My dad's jaw tightened. "So this is because of her?" "No," I said. "This is because of you." My mom recovered quickly. "If there's money involved, that concerns us." "Why?" I asked. "Because if there's inheritance, it doesn't," I said. "And it's none of your business." She smiled, brittle. "Don't be dramatic." My grandma spoke, calm and final. "You should leave." My mom snapped toward her. "This is between me and my daughter." My grandma didn't move. "This is my house too." Silence. The sidewalk suddenly felt very public. My mom's face hardened. "We'll talk about this later." "No," I said. "We won't." They stood there another second, then turned and walked away. I watched them go, chalk dust still bright on the pavement, and knew exactly one thing. They hadn't expected this, and they were not done. 2 weeks later, the letter arrived. I knew it was bad before I opened it. Envelopes don't feel heavy unless they're trying to ruin your day. I sat at the kitchen table and read it once. Then again. They were suing. Elder financial abuse. Undue influence. Claims that Helen wasn't capable of making decisions. Claims that I had manipulated her. claims that the apple stock belonged to my mom because it had been her father's. I stared at that line longer than the rest. The apple stock. How did they even know about that? And how much did they know? My hands shook just enough to be annoying. Chloe watched me from the doorway. Are we in trouble? No, I said automatically, then quieter. We're going to talk to someone. The lawyer was not impressed. These cases happen all the time, she said, scanning the paperwork. People smell money and panic. Your grandmother is competent. The documentation is clean. This is intimidation. Helen snorted. I told you. Still, it rattled me, because it wasn't just money now. It was my parents deciding that if they couldn't control me, they'd try to threaten me legally. Around the same time, messages started trickling in. Is it true you took your mom's inheritance? Your parents are worried about Helen. This doesn't look good, Jenna. Smear campaign. Soft launch. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The truth doesn't require a press release. Then Chloe broke. She came home from school quiet one day, sat on the couch, and didn't touch her snack. Aiden kept asking questions, she said finally. What kind of questions? About the house. About money. She swallowed. I told him about the apple stock. My stomach dropped. What exactly did you say? That it was from great-grandma. That it was a lot. I didn't say numbers. She looked at me, eyes filling. Is that why Grandma and Grandpa are mad? I pulled her into my arms. No, this is not your fault. But, Chloe, I said firmly, adults are responsible for what adults do, not kids. She nodded against my shoulder, still shaking. That night, Helen made a decision. She moved the remaining stock into a trust, named me the sole beneficiary. Clean. Locked. No room for interpretation. They don't get to scare you, she said. Or her. I slept that night, for the first time in months. The lawsuit unraveled faster than I expected. Not in a dramatic way, in a quiet, procedural way. My lawyer asked for documentation. Medical evaluations were submitted. Timelines were laid out in plain language. Then the letters stopped coming. No new filings, no follow-ups, no next steps. A week passed. Then another. When I asked my lawyer what that meant, she said, it usually means they don't want to keep pushing. After that, the tone changed. What had been accusations turned into misunderstandings. What had been urgent became vague. And eventually, there was nothing. I didn't let it end there. After the lawsuit fell apart, I filed a separate claim, small, specific, and very boring on paper, for what they had actually taken. The things they sold while Chloe was in the hospital. Not emotions, not trauma, not family dynamics. Just property, inventory, dates, receipts, a list of items with price tags attached. My lawyer warned me it wouldn't be dramatic. She was right. It wasn't. They pushed back at first. Not aggressively, just enough to pretend they were offended. Then the paperwork kept stacking up, and the pretending stopped. A few weeks later, the check arrived. It wasn't a fortune. A few $1,000s, roughly what they'd made selling Chloe's game console, tablet, headphones, and the rest of the things they decided she wasn't using. It felt almost insulting, considering everything, but that wasn't the point. When I held it in my hand, it felt real in a way the lawsuit never had. I sat Chloe down at the kitchen table and showed it to her. This, I said, tapping the paper, isn't a prize. She looked up at me. Then what is it? It's proof, I said, that what they did was wrong, and that people don't get to do that to you. She thought about that for a second, then nodded. So they can't do it again. No, I said. They can't. Word got out. Not about money, not about stocks, not about numbers, but about behavior. About selling a child's things while she was in the hospital, about pushing a single mother out and calling it fairness. About how my grandma had been treated years earlier when she stopped being useful. No announcements, no expose, just the quiet way people stop answering messages, stop inviting you over, stop defending you when your name comes up. My parents stopped calling after that. Not dramatically, just completely. Relatives stopped whispering. The questions dried up. The noise faded the way it always does when there's nothing left to justify. Sometimes I still stand in the kitchen and feel that disbelief flicker. From a garage full of boxes to this. From a sofa offered like charity to a front door I control. And every now and then, when Chloe laughs too loud or my grandma hums while she waters the plants, I think about how close we came to disappearing, and how we didn't. Not this time. So what do you think? Did I go too far, or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.